It's June 17th, so I thought I would do another maybe shorter houseplant tour. Not too much has changed, but there's been a few new orchids that have bloomed and a couple things moved around. So this is the foyer, which really hasn't changed at all. And I'll try and be steady just to kind of show you what I've got here. Very similar to last month's tour. So some Phalaenopsis orchids here, a ZZ plant, an unknown philodendron, which is kind of, the leaves come out and they immediately turn brown. So I'm just keeping the ones that have not turned brown. We've got a calathea here with the pink striping. We have a peace lily, a lime green fern, and yeah, again, the Phalaenopsis. This is one of the more recent ones to bloom. Looking up, way up, is one of the spider plants in the macrame plant hanger. And then over to the left here is the other one. And over here is the Pothos marble queen that is also sitting in the foyer, hanging in the foyer, I should say. Here in one corner of the living room, the one that has one of the lamps, there's two plant stands here, and so nothing's changed here. We have some calatheas, some ferns, a Christmas cactus, and a pothos here. Philodendron Brazil, I should say. The calathea that was sitting on the back plant stand, I did move it because I think it has root aphids. I noticed that the leaves were constantly browning. The new leaves that were emerging were really small and not really doing much, and the older leaves were turning brown, which kind of sometimes indicates a nutrient deficiency. But I have noticed recently that particularly on the plants that are affected with with these symptoms, looking closely at the soil shows that there's these tiny little, not larvae, not immature versions of some insect like a fungus gnat, but actual, they look like kind of mites, but in reading up online as to what they could be, my conclusion was, based on the symptoms and what they look like, is that they are root aphids. And so I've got a few plants that are affected by them. So basically, any plant that I come across that has those symptoms and where I see those insects on the soil, I quarantine them. So the calathea that was back there is currently in quarantine. So this is the one corner. The other corner of the living room also remains unchanged. So basically this is the exact same selection of plants that we had last month, but I'll just give you a shot of that. In the dining room floor near the patio, we've got the monstera that was originally sitting in the front hallway that I've moved to the back window. This gets more light. I don't want to give it direct light, but it gets much brighter light here, as does the Philodendron Xanadu and the Philodendron Psalum. They really seem to like it here. I'm sorry for panning over here because I know I get motion sickness. I'm sure you guys do too. So this leaf here, this bigger leaf is a newer leaf, and compared to the older ones when I got them, which were about half the size, these have done really well in this sort of southwest facing window, and actually they really don't mind the direct sun. Now we're just getting into summer, so I will be mindful of that and make sure that I monitor how warm it gets here and watch to see if the plant is still happy. If it's not, then I'll move it much further away from the window, but right now it's okay. I do have sort of this sheer curtain that I will pull, and I do have a blind that I can pull down as well to kind of filter the light. So these are the floor plants in the dining room. The corner of the dining room is exactly the same as last time. It has the Phalaenopsis orchid and a lime green peperomia. On the dining room table, we have our same selection of some peperomia that we propagated from cuttings earlier, actually closer to Christmas, and some Phalaenopsis orchids. The Calathea Fusion White that was basically infested with spider mites, I took it out of its pot, took all the soil off, washed it, discovered that it's actually two plants in the pot, and I repotted them, cut all the old dead leaves back, and I'm trying to regrow them and seeing what happens. The one on the left looks much healthier than the one on the right, so we'll see what happens with them. And here's some more peperomia that I was propagating from cuttings. And on the buffet / bookcase in the dining room, same selection of plants again. So some peperomia, a pilea, alocasia, and some calatheas. The calathea on the far left here, it's the Calathea worcesterii. Sorry. I find that this one and the Calathea zebrina, they have more of the velvety leaves. They are much more sensitive to moisture loss and moisture levels in the air. And this one, unfortunately, is not too happy here. I'm trying to keep it in a humid setting, but I think this one may just end up going outside for this summer in a nice shaded location. I'm not sure what to do about it yet, but I'm going to keep misting it and water as much as I can, and hopefully it will survive. So this is the dining room. This is in the home office, and actually I don't think I showed this room on the plant tour last month, but basically this is sort of a place where some of the quarantine plants come to recuperate and hopefully get successful treatment. So I have a couple of peperomias here that were hand-me-downs from my parents, and they had thrips, but I think hopefully we've treated them successfully and they seem to be bouncing back. This Phalaenopsis orchid did show some signs of root aphids in the medium, but I don't think it's actually affecting the plant. I just put it in this room to be on the safe side. This Dieffenbachia definitely had root aphids. This is actually the third incarnation of this plant. I kept having to take cuttings of the plant, wash them off, root them, pot them, and a couple of times they still ended up coming back with root aphids and were sort of showing signs of decline, but I think this one so far is okay, but we'll keep watching it. And a Sansevieria, which actually has always been okay. It's just always been in this room and doesn't seem to be affected by anything. I think just because the moisture level is so low in the soil, it doesn't really promote the oh, it's Sunday morning. Why can't I find the words? Basically the colonization of insects in the soil. So that's one of the rooms. I hope the backlighting isn't too bad here. I kind of tried to brighten the filter here. So this is one of the bedrooms, and we've got our pots here with Sansevieria, a Philodendron pothos, a couple of Phalaenopsis orchids. We have sorry for the backlighting, the parent Syndapsis pictus here, from which I've taken many cuttings. The string of nickels and the string of pearls, which is still hanging on. It's got like one nubbin that's remaining. I'm sorry, I can't get it, but you can kind of see there the nubbin that's sticking out. And my pride and joy right now is this Bealara Big Shot Hilo Sparkle that just started blooming. The pseudobulbs on this orchid are huge, first of all. They're probably twice the size of any other type of Oncidium Alliance orchid. And the flowers, accordingly, are also huge. So this was a plant that I bought at a nursery in the winter, and it was on clearance because it had stopped blooming and it was dehydrated, and so they were getting rid of it at a discount, so I got that. And so we're going to move on to the final room in our tour. This is the final room in the tour. This is our plant room. This is where we actually do propagation of plants. And it's the permanent home of some of the house plants in the house. So we've got a nice alocasia here. It did have some setbacks. It also had root aphids. I think, now I don't know if anybody knows, but basically I've noticed coincidentally that the root aphids, or whatever they are, that's just my conclusion, they seem to be found most commonly in the soils of plants that need high moisture. So the alocasias, calatheas, some of the other plants like the Dieffenbachia, which seems to dry out very quickly, and I have to keep the moisture level in the soil constant and water it frequently. That's where I seem to see these insects. So are they the problem, or are they a symptom of another problem, of root rot perhaps? I don't know. But basically, I've been trying to manage the insects just in case they are the source of the problem. and not the symptom. But anyways, I still want to read up a bit more on that so that I can get a handle on what's exactly happening to the plants. So these are all the same plants pretty much here. We've got a collection: Sansevierias, Christmas cactus, some Phalaenopsis orchids, Oncidium orchids. We have a nice phal that's blooming here. The Nellie Eiler, of course, which is the prized possession. It's got a new growth here. You can kind of see it, little guy there. So I'm trying to keep this happy. I am running the ultrasonic humidifier at night to keep the moisture level, to try and keep it above 50. Right now it's 52. Ideally, we would like this to be in the 70 range, but I think that's just going to be detrimental to the room if we keep it that high. And then here's a Dendrobium Phalaenopsis orchid. Lucky bamboo in the back there, and one of the older plants that I have is this peace lily, which I've had for probably 15 or 16 years now. And back there is a ficus that was given to me by a friend who moved back home out of town and had to leave that. Certainly not least is the well-lit area where I have my Cattleya seedlings, and I have any other plants that had to be given some extra light to kind of recuperate. So here's some Cattleyas, some fairly dehydrated. This one I bought actually at a orchid sale, and it lost almost all of its roots. Like basically when I repotted it, I found that it had no live roots left. So it does have a new growth here, and it's putting out a new root from the new growth, but it's going to take a long time before the rest of the canes rehydrate. And then I've got my Better Grow orchids here that are all doing really, really well. They were purchased in Buffalo. I have a peperomia at the back that was propagated from cuttings. I have a calathea that's coming back. This one died right back to the soil. All the leaves died, but I did read online that sometimes they do that, and that they have like not a dormant period, but a period where they rejuvenate, and sure enough, this sent up a brand new shoot, and it's doing so well. And then we have some more Phalaenopsis orchids and another Philodendron Brazil back here. So that's it. Oh, actually, no, one more thing is this Nepenthes here, which it is not really doing too great because the humidity level is not constant. But I am trying to keep the soil really, really wet because that's what it likes. So it's tolerating this environment. It's certainly not thriving, but it's tolerating it. So I feel like that's my responsibility to keep it at least somewhat happy. And this is probably the best room in the house to do that. So now this really is the end of the plant tour. Thank you so much for watching. If you have questions, please post them in the comments. Thank you for subscribing, for anybody who's subscribed. I really, really appreciate it. If you do like these videos, please like and subscribe to them. And I hope to post another video very soon. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great Sunday. Take care.